Hello, in this video is addressed to my twin flame Shia. Hi Shia. For those just watching, I thank you for watching. In this video, Shia, I'm going to make one part. And I recited the Quran yesterday. If you notice something different about me these past couple of weeks, I'm getting a little bit sick from reciting the Quran. I think it's because it's working. So, also, I got extra sleep these past couple of days. I was able to lay down because I wasn't getting tortured. I did get tortured a couple times, and I started to do the Lumerian technology, and it stopped. So I was able to lay down and fall on and off of sleep until 11:50 a.m. And that's something that my brain injury has needed so badly, is sleep, the correct amount of sleep, and I haven't been able to get it. So I have some notes here, Shia, and something that happened yesterday. One of my bras is kind of loose, and I had your photo. I have your photo here. It's a little bit on the side, and yesterday it kept falling out. So then I finally just put it on the bed, and then it was blowing around from the fan, and I just knew that that was kind of you communicating with me, that you're like really want to talk to me, and you're upset, Shia. So I wrote quite a bit of notes. Actually, no, I didn't. I'm going to show you the places I live now, Shia. And this is going to be proof for you and me, and I didn't say this is going to be proof for me and you. This is proof that I was running away from crime against me, because I've had about 25 different places where I lived. So the average person lives in 11 homes over their lifetime, and I'm only 38, and I've had like 25 different places that I've lived. So I broke it down, and this isn't perfect notes. I didn't take pictures of every single place I live, but I have to like just kind of show you what I have. But 7 of the places I've lived were for many years, with my mother and my brother. 6 years. 6 places I lived a year or less, and 12 of the places I lived 5 months or less. So this isn't like travel, this is like places I've lived, so there's a lack of stability, and it was extremely stressful to live like this. It made me sick, and I'm going to show you. And part of the reason why I had to live like this was because I was so physically and mentally tortured, I couldn't hold down a living wage job, or I couldn't even apply for a living wage job. I wasn't allowed. And the one time I did was only was for 5 months, and I had to work. I was forced to like work. Well, I was asked and sort of obligated to work over 50 hours, between 50 and 55 hours at that living wage job, and it was so boring, and there was no customers. I was getting SUICDAL. So all of these places I've lived, I'm gonna just break it down for you, and then I'll show you the photographs. So, between 0 and 5 years old, I live in Goffstown in an apartment complex. Well, maybe I should show you the photographs. I'll show you the photograph to kind of make it like so you can understand, like kind of follow along with the visuals. So this is Timberwood. So that's where I grew up from around 1 to 5 years old. 1 Timberwood Drive, Unit 302. Very, very small town. Very, very small town. And then I moved to Mast Road. It's now an animal hospital. It's now connected to the animal hospital. So this is the Mast Road home. So my dad and my mom rented a house in Goffstown from 5 to like between 5 and 8 years old. And this is the Goffstown Animal Hospital, and this is where I lived, up here in this room right here. And now they've connected the animal hospital with this house. See that window? That's where I lived. And it was a pretty spacious house, but it was old. And I'll show you the front of what it looks like. There is a little bit of a backyard with a couple trees. So this was 721. 721 Mast Road. I'm not going to go into detail about the houses and everything, like all of the memories and everything. So, that was an old house. I think it was kind of haunted. I wouldn't pick any of these places that I lived. I wouldn't pick any of them. This is the nicest place I've ever lived. Not environment-wise. However, this apartment, because of the cleanliness in the inside, how it's brand new, and like it's all mine in Yorkshire. It's the nicest place. So after Mast Road, I moved to Auburn, New Hampshire, and was forced to live with my mom and dad stepfather, who wasn't a father. And I'll show you. Hold on. I didn't say hold on. Where is the... So this is the driveway, 464 Chester Road. This is the creepy driveway in Auburn, where you can't see the house. You have to walk a few hundred feet to get to the house, so that alone is very scary, being in the middle of the woods. See how long this driveway is? You can't see the house. .464 Chester Road. Hey, where's the photos of my room? So this is what... I'm not going to show you all the photos of it. However, basically, this is what it looked like from the front. And I live right there. This is a nightmare house. dungeon house. This is what the back of the house looked like. And that used to be a little small pool. In the wintertime, he never closed it. One of his dogs fell and it froze to death. And seemed to be on purpose. I'm not going to say if that's true or not. This was my room, so it did not have hardwood floor. They made hardwood floor. It had the most ugliest pink, like really tacky, cheapest, ugliest pink. This was my room. See this opening, this piece of fabric flap covering this area? This was never closed off. There was a long, dark, tunnel-ish area where you could store things, where it was not capable of seeth because I was never told where the lights were to how to turn them on. This flap was a nightmare because this long tunnel, I was told people were living in there to try to survive. I was told there's things that are going to jump out. There's like animals that were going to crawl out. There was going to be someone hiding in there to try to kill me and come out. I could never close it off. It was just layers and layers of fabric. And I actually did write several pages about this little thing. However, that's not a door. That's not a door. That's not like that doesn't go way up as a door. The way it's cut off with the picture, it looks like it's like a whole door. It's not. It's like this high, and you can crawl in. It's like this long tunnel that's like not like full of dust and all like unfinished. And ow, I'm getting itchy. I'll have to explain that more about what that room, how they use that. But this is the other part of the room. That was the closet, and I'd fit my bed here. I'd literally put my bed in every single position, and I was forced to put my mattress. I was forced to put my mattress in front of this, on the side of this. It was because I was trying to block it, so if someone were to try to come in, it would be blocked by the bed. But that was the only part. I didn't block it all the time. I've had my mattress here, I've had my mattress here, I've had my mattress here, I've had my mattress here. I've had my mattress like everywhere. So I'll explain more about that room another time. However, this stove I think is different because this went all the way up. This didn't just go into the chimney, from what I remember. This doesn't really look like the wood stove that... I think they got a new wood stove. But this is one of the worst places I've ever lived, and very tacky, gaudy. This was the bathroom that I always used. There's the bathtub under there. Tacky, gaudy, like 80s 80s kind of decoration. So that was Auburn. So I lived in Timberwood and Mass Road. So after Auburn, I moved to, well, in between middle school and high school, my mom split up from Joe. We moved to Hooksett, Granite Hill condominiums. And I just took a photo of the sign because I was getting really tired of taking all the photos of these places, and I had to Google map everything and then search for the house. And obviously this was, hold on. Granite Hill was a nice place. The condo was pretty nice. I had a big room, but I just had a bed and a desk without a chair. I would never really pick these homes, but this is what Granite Hill on Hooksett Road. It was nice. It was a pretty nice place to live. However, so then we went back to Auburn. My mom went back to live with, well, I never called him my stepfather, my stepdad. He was just Joe. And I hate that name. I'll hate that name for the rest of my life. Not like other people named Joe, however, I'll hate that name. Then, from Auburn, I graduated from high school, and then it's a little bit of a blur when I lived in Hooksett and then when my mom went back to live in Auburn. However, then I went off to college in San Francisco. I lived in 3 college dorms, sort of like in between the Tenderloin, which is a very bad area, and Nob Hill, which is a nice area. And I was pretty sheltered my whole life, so when I went to school, I basically just hung out with my roommates or whoever else was around and did my work. I'm not going to talk about college, but I lived in 3 different places in college. I had the first dorm. I lived with 2 other girls who became my friends, and then at the time, and then the second college dorm was a bigger room with 1, 2, 3 other girls. And then I think the last dorm I lived in was a private room, and I had a lot of solitude in that room. I don't know why I never went to the kitchen though. I remember microwaving pasta in my microwave, boiling pasta in my microwave, and it was constantly spilling over. So with the college dorms, those were less than a year, just like partial fall, winter, and spring, summer season. And so that was like 3 years. However, I took online courses after that on my own in my late 20s. Around when I lived in Maplehurst Ave with my mom and my brother, I started to take up online classes to try to finish my degree. Had to stop somehow. And then I tried to take online classes again when I was 28, and then somehow I had to stop because I didn't have the time, and at the time I was trying to work a full-time job and pay my room that I was renting, an apartment. So after college, I went back and lived with my mother in Auburn and Joe. And then they split up finally. And me and my mom and brother went and lived on the west side in a little shitty apartment in a very ghetto-ish area. And in the west side of Manchester. This was probably one of the ugliest places I've lived in. Very bad time just felt awful. I was really feeling sick, but this was the outside of, this is what it looked like where me and my mom and brother lived. I was right there, that was my room. Wait, no. No, this was my room right here. This is the front of the apartment. It was a three apartment complex, so there was 3 floors. We were on the 3rd floor. This was a very bad time. And this is what it looked like from the side getting in. So we'd go up here through the stairs and go up here. I never liked west side of Manchester my whole life either. And I'll show you, the kitchen was really, really small. I had absolutely no appetite in this kitchen. This was my room where I lived. It was less than a half a year or so, or I believe. And then we moved into, my mom rented a house. But I put my bed right there. This was a very bad time. And then, so I lived here in this room. My brother lived there. And my mom lived sort of in the front and this off to the side. This was the living room, and then there was a little room off to the side that was wicked small that she lived in. She was sleeping on the floor. I don't really know why she didn't bring the bed. It was probably because I don't know. So that was a temporary place. So after we lived, then she found the place in Maplehurst. This was the Maplehurst house. We lived for several years. And just a reminder, my brother, he's been very sick, like living in his room, going out in the other common areas very little for like 20 years. He's had a very bad life. And something's going to happen because he didn't get any help from anybody. I obviously, I was his sister, and I had absolutely no, I was completely full body possession. However, they didn't really help my brother. So this was, my mom, well, my mom's sick too. This was the Maplehurst house. All of these places are pretty ugly. This is like, because it had no roof, it just had a flat roof, and that had cement on the ground. That's like the basement area, and then I lived in the back corner. This was a nice place though on the inside, and if the pictures are way better looking than what it looked. But this was 214 Maplehurst Ave. And this was the back of the house, and we'd pretty much go back in here, walk up these stairs and walk in through the back way, because the driveway was bigger. So this was, I lived in the front with the front area, and then I moved up back here in this. No, I lived. This is the back. I lived in this room, but I lived in the front here first with my own bathroom. But then I moved there because we had to start renting out the rooms to people. We just like go on Craigslist and put ads. There's a room for rent, and they'd all just kept to themselves. So that was Maplehurst. That's the house where I started the online courses. Tried to finish my degree, then it didn't work out. I was getting extremely brutally tortured in that house. So the torture that became more obvious, this was the house where the hacker started to make it obvious. This is where the hacker revealed himself to me. And in that shitty apartment in West Side, I was like wicked possessed, like wicked sick, couldn't work a job, like so sick. My brother was wicked sick, my mom was wicked sick. And then when we moved to this house, she ended up having to file for bankruptcy, I think, on this place. But this was probably the nicest place I ever lived with my mom, because it was pretty new and clean inside, but she could barely afford the rent, and my brother did help. I wasn't allowed to really make living wage, and so if I was working retail, I was just making little bits of money here and there for maybe some clothes, some food. So after we had to end up leaving this house and moving to Muskoma Lake. Now the good thing about Muskoma Lake, it was she was renting in Lebanon. No, not Lebanon. Enfield, Enfield. So Enfield, I'll show you. So we left Maplehurst, and when I was living in Maplehurst, I ended up moving. Oh, I forgot about that place. I rented a room from this girl. He was living off the floor on a twin mattress and didn't have any furniture, not even a desk. That was really embarrassing for a few months. In Manchester, and I don't remember the street of that. She ended up wanting to go back to school and go live with her parents to do something else, different profession. So I don't even know. So I left Maplehurst and lived in this room, and it was very, very embarrassing. I was getting extremely tortured. I was basically just bouncing around, but I didn't really have a notice. I had 2 weeks to try to find a place. Could not find a place for the amount of, I was only paying $400 for that room, so I couldn't find anything cheaper. So then I went and lived in my car that I had, and that was in a freezing winter. And at that time I was working at Joanne Fabrics and Ellie Tahari and Merrimack Outlets, and I didn't know anything about living in the vehicle. I thought you could car camp in grocery store parking lots, hotel parking lots. So I did meet several police that were knocking on my window saying, you gotta move along, you gotta move along. But they weren't mean to me, and they probably recognized me, and I didn't know that they knew who I was probably at the time. So that was extreme. I was getting frostbite. I wasn't allowed to get proper bedding for when I was living in my car. And so I forgot about So there's more than 25 places that I lived, but I was then, when I was living in my car, I found on Craigslist this girl who wanted to make a fashion show. I met her. We did not get along. She was like wicked confusing and like just, we couldn't communicate. It was like impossible. There could have been something wrong with her. So then I'm like, okay, well, I was possessed to continue making the fashion show, and basically it wasn't a good idea because I ended up being like $1,000 in debt that I still never paid off, those credit cards. That's basically the only debt that I own though, right at this point, and so it really made my credit very poor, and I have all these programs of I'm gonna like die or like have extreme panic attacks if I owe debt. But $1,000 really isn't that much money. But after that fashion show, that was a totally rigged program to make me want to KILL myself. I went back and lived with my mom, and at Maplehurst, the house I just showed you. So then we moved to Muskoma Lake. Muskoma Lake was nice because it was right on a lake. However, it was full of mold. I should have lived in the sunroom and not that attic. The attic's not even this attic. So this 125 New Hampshire Route 4A, 125 New Hampshire Route 4A in Enfield. This was the place. And yes, it was nice because it was on the lake. However, I had to live up here, and it was not furnished. Like it was all exposed, like beams of dusty wood, and they don't even show it on the listings. Basically, this is the opposite side of where I lived. See how it has that? And see how you can't stand up? You couldn't really stand up in the room that I was living in. I mean, but this wasn't even this area. This was so dusty and moldy. I wouldn't have been able too claustrophobic to live there. But I lived on the other side, and that was with an air mattress. Basically an air mattress and clothes. That's all I had. But this was the lake. This was where the stairs, this is where the kitchen was. I was right up here. And there was so much humiliation, rituals, and so much evil going on. And some of the photos are my mother's decorations of what, some of the photos online are my mother's decorations. But this is not my mother's decorations. This was a photo from probably the past that they used. My mom would never buy polka dot bedding. She has a little bit of a, I don't know, a little bit bohemian. But this was the front door. It was cold inside with the bricks, and the attic was unlivable in the summer because it was so hot, unlivable in the winter. However, there was a little sunroom, and I did a lot of sewing. But I was so physically tortured in this house. I was so physically tortured in all of these houses, and barely able to work a part-time job. And when I did work the part-time jobs, it was so labor intensive. I was dying from the labor intensity. So after Muskoma Lake, then I got that high-paying job for 5 months and lived in that 4 Ela Street. Basically, when I got that really high-paying job, every single penny was stolen from the witchcraft, and I was literally counting my pennies at the end of the month, and I was working overtime making $55,000, working overtime because I was asked to. I was offered, and every single penny. I could barely pay the car bill to give to my mom because she was dealing with the car payment. I could barely send my mom the $200 and something every month because all the money was just being taken from me. And should I have gotten that apartment? No, I should have stayed living in the attic. However, this apartment, I was also getting tortured. It was completely unfurnished. It was completely embarrassing. It was like $1,000 a month, which was like a third of. And by the way, I've never made that kind of money my entire life. That was totally set up, like, to make me feel like a complete idiot. It was brain dead work. I was basically cleaning the whole time in an empty store, 50 hours a week, and like standing around and folding clothes, where like you didn't even have to fold the clothes. Everything was so neat and perfect. That was some kind of SUICDAL programming. So let me show you the Fort Ela apartment. Did I like living in this Fort Ela apartment? No, because they were using, I was being attacked really bad, and hold on, where's, this is what Timberwood, the apartments look like when I was like 0 to 5 years old. That was a nice little apartment complex because it was pretty new. This was I never would choose to live in a house like this, but this was the first thing I found, and I was basically forced to not look around. Basically, I lived in that. There's a big house, and they're all split up into apartments, and I lived right in this bottom floor. There was a couple that lived above me, and they tend to do that, put me in, around couples to make me uncomfortable. So that was where I lived, down on this floor. It was really cute. Basically, I took a really boiling hot bath and turned lobster red every single time. They had me turn on the oven and leave on the gas to try to kill me with the oven gasoline. They were trying to show people how easy it was to break in when one of my family members, I left my key in, one of my family members just basically opened the window very easily. And it would be too hot to lock and close the windows because I had no AC. So that was 5 months, not even 5 months living there. It was like 4 months probably. No, probably 5 months maybe. Then, couldn't afford this apartment. Moved to Mount Shasta, lived in my car. Something really, really bad happened where I was got put in a mental institution. Then my mom dragged me back to New Hampshire. Then I drove down to visit my dad. Not welcome living at my dad's, just not comfortable, and it was obvious that they were making it uncomfortable for me. Yeah, I was just always treated like a little dumb child. No job, no life. Just completely lost, nowhere to go, no family, no lifestyle. Then I lived and worked I skipped a few things, Shia. I lived in Shivananda Yoga Center. I lived in the Michigan Yoga Center, and I lived in the Bhavana Center in West Virginia. And those for like 5 months each. So I have to try to remember how I lived when I lived in those places. But the Mount Shasta, and I went back, lived at the Bhavana Society, then moved back. Then basically I was forced to kind of leave because it was so labor intensive. My arms were like 3 times the size of my body, and I was having like heart attack symptoms, and it was I was gonna die if I kept at the pace of what I was doing. So then I went to Mount Shasta, lived in my car. I thought I was gonna do some camping. I had some of the most unbearable panic attacks when I pitched a tent. Very cheap tent that was kind of falling apart. Then I was hospital, and then I had to go to the hospital again. No, I went to the hospital, and then I had to walk around and act like in like freezing cold weather, and act like I wasn't allowed to go back to my car. So then I ended up finally moving to Dunsmuir. This isn't like the perfect time. I'm not explaining it well enough. I did take trips back to see my mom, and like take a break from living in the car like 3 or 4 times. But then I finally came back out, and I found this place in Dunsmuir, and I lived there in Dunsmuir. And I was thinking, I was only paying $500 a month. I ended up being able to finish my book. I basically just sat in there and finished and edited my book the whole time. And then I started to try to promote the fashion on Instagram with posting lots of photos of myself. And then, but that was, I had a couple, it was like a bed and breakfast at their Airbnb, but then they stopped because of coronavirus, and so they started renting rooms, and the 2 other girls didn't like me. One of them told me to kill myself, and I think it was set up because one of them was a girl from India who's like a Bollywood star, and I didn't look her up on the internet. Basically, like she didn't really act like she was like a famous actress, but that was completely set up to make me feel very uncomfortable because of the programs that were occurring. But those 2 started to gang up on me. They were trying to get me kicked out, and I just was leaving them alone and just working on editing my book. And she wanted rides because she didn't have a car, and I refused because of so many strokes I had. I didn't trust the safety level I didn't trust that I could drive someone around. So I said, no, I'm not going to. And that's when they started to be mean. But they started, the other one was like just this old, past middle-aged lady that was pissed off because I had the nicer room, but she was paying less rent. Just a bunch of drama, and I just kind of wanted to be left alone, but I was getting severely tortured in that everywhere I went. So after Dunsmuir, they stopped. They wanted to, we all had to leave because they wanted to rent it out to like just one person and turn it into an apartment. And so I tried to get that place in Wairika, but it was a dump and full of cockroaches. And so then I drove down to Southern California and lived in my car for a couple of years. Visited my mom a couple times because my leg, at the time, the doctor didn't tell me it was an infection. It was just a mystery that was going on in my leg. So I had an infection in my leg that the doctor refused to tell me. But I could barely walk, and it was all swollen, and I was like using crutches, barely moving out of the car. So I went and lived with my mom to try to get off my leg for a couple months, and that's when I ended up being able to get this place. And then I've been here now for 2.5 years. But I forgot to tell you about the New York City. I lived in Astoria and Jersey City around 2014. Astoria a few months, Jersey City a few months, and then I quit school and I had that little part-time job at Montmartre, where there was like barely any customers. It was wicked SUICDA, out boring, and I was just basically walking around for hours and hours at a time. It was so boring, and I was traveling 3 hours for that job, 3 hours a day. So I had to quit that job, leave Jersey City. My mom picked me up on all my belongings. I think my dad did come out up at one point and bought me some things at Walmart or Target. He bought me like a bath mat and some living essentials. I remember that. I remember he did that. But then a few minutes later I went back and lived with my mom. And I lived with my dad for a few months, and when him and his second wife Diane were living together in this apartment. I lived with my dad for like, I don't know, 5 months or longer when I was living in high school, and I lived in my car. And I lived in Oregon Retreat for a few weeks, but I had to leave because I was pretty much dying. My spirit was like lifting out of my body, and I was pretty much dying. So I went back home then. So I was constantly trying to do the live and work trade retreats to try to get away and stop living with my mom. However, those live and work trade retreats were so labor intensive. It was extremely painful, and they had you had to get up at like 5, 6, 7 a.m. every day because of the them being religious meditation retreats, and I was getting so sick, so painful. It was torture. So in the Berkeley place, I lived in Berkeley. I didn't explain this well enough. When I went and lived in Berkeley, that was the time where I was taking those online courses, and then I went to Berkeley, I went to Berkeley, California during the time my mom was living in Maplehurst, and I took courses in school, not online. However, it wasn't working because I switched to online. It wasn't working out because I couldn't just live off the financial aid, and I tried to get a retail job and it didn't work. It was like a very evil, I couldn't figure out their computer system, but they weren't teaching me type of thing, and the retail was like barely any customers again. It was very elite, you had to sell aggressively if anyone came to the store because nobody was coming in. So then that Berkeley place, it was an office where I was living in with a big plastic, there was a twin bed, and there was the plastic covering on the mattress she said, this stays on. So I'm thinking to myself, I didn't think to put an air mattress on it. I don't think I had the money at the time, and I didn't have a way to lug it back to the place. And an air mattress wasn't an option. Where was I going to put her mattress? But she had a thick covering, and every time I laid on it and moved my body and turned my body, it would squeak wicked loud. So I ended up sleeping on the wooden floor with my blankets half the time. It was like I was living there for 3 months. It was very, very bad. Where is it? Oh. So I still have an email that I copied of her. This was the room. It looks much it looks larger than it is. It looks larger the way that they made the photograph. It's not large. It's extremely skinny, and they fit a twin bed, this going this side. They fit a twin bed going this side, so I was laying on the floor with this little much space next to the twin bed when I couldn't tolerate that plastic noisy thing, and there was a whole thing that was going on with it. And then I had a little desk where I was sitting right there working on my fashion blog at the time, and there was interviewing fashion people, and that was a whole humiliation ritual when I had to interview all these fashion companies and like just think one day that maybe I'll have my own fashion company. It was a whole humiliation ritual. I didn't like it. It wasn't really my style. So this place, the address was 2526 Regent Boulevard. See how it says 2-bedroom? 1 bath? That wasn't a bedroom, it was like an office size. It wasn't even the size of an office. So, did I tell you every place I went? And I lived with my grandmother for a few months when my mom went into the hospital, because I put her in the hospital because she went into a state of psychosis. I didn't want to live with my brother alone, so I went and moved in, lived with my grandmother for a few months. That's when I came back from in 2014 from living in my car in Maplehurst. But I didn't like living with my grandmother, and she was kind of making fun of me, and then she'd have people over and they'd be like, "Wow, you really can't take care of yourself, can you, Alyssa?" Because I was living with my grandmother at the time. So I've listed 26 places, but I'm pretty sure I've lived in more than 26 places. 7 places I've lived at with my mom for many years. 6 places a year or less. 12 places 5 months or less. So this is extreme stress. This is extreme lack of stability. This is I could barely survive, and this was making me very sick. And it's also proof that I really couldn't make it. I could really barely survive. I wasn't really making it. So I didn't really explain it completely the best that I needed to explain it as well as I should. However, I basically just wrote down the list really quickly, and I'm not happy with the places I've lived. Most of the places I lived were like dungeons, purgatories, tortured in every single place I lived. And this apart from what's going on with the crime against me, this is like the cleanest apartment and like the most nicest type of furniture and the most well furnished I've ever lived in. Even though it's not even that great, I'm hoping that if I don't spend my money this month, I'm hoping I'll be able to go to IKEA and get a few things. However, I might not, because food is more important. So I'm gonna have to stop this video, Shia. This is a lot of information, Shia, and I understand. So last night I had some tortilla chips with salsa, and I had the eggplant and tomatoes with the noodles. Actually tasted really good. This is what it looks like. I'll definitely be going to Trader Joe's for a few things for food. This is going to trigger me. I'm probably going to just try to recite the Quran and rest as much as possible. I was going to show you some food research. However, I'm only going to make one part, Shia. So I'm going to stop this video. Let me talk about you, Shia, real quick. I'm playing your video on repeat on the video, and it's helping me a lot, Shia. Shia, you need a lack of stress, and you are adventurous, Shia. You're a planner, and you're orderly. You're friendly. You're not competitive. You're funny and peaceful. You have a very interesting personality, Shia. You're so special, Shia. You can offend people, and you're a talker. You're very detailed. You're very confident. You're not popular like me. You're not hard to please. You're pretty frank. You're peace-loving. You like new experiences. You like new ideas, and I know how much you like the food, Shia. All the food research. And you're idealist, empathetic, insightful, gentle. You're very unforgiving, Shia. You're very hardworking. You're very suspicious. You're not witty. You're very unusual. You're very unconventional. You're very understanding and trustworthy. You're studious. You're straightforward. You're sophisticated. You're sharp-eyed. You're sentimental. You're sensitive. You're resourceful and reserved. You're religious and polite. So I'm going to stop talking about you, Shia. And I used the pendulum. What did you say? I didn't read the notes, Shia. You're happy, Shia. You're happy there's gonna be karma and justice involved with what has happened to us. And I did also get something about violence and freedom on the pendulum. I didn't really know what that meant about you. So I'm going to talk to you tomorrow. I love you, Shia. Thank you, everybody, for watching. Thank you so much, Shia, for watching.